You believe confidence is loud, visible, reassuring, but the most terrifying confidence has no need to announce itself, because it does not seek approval, it does not ask permission, and it does not explain itself. What if the calm you mistake for weakness is actually the most dominant force a human can embody? You feel it instinctively when someone enters a room and nothing changes, yet everything shifts. This video explores that kind of confidence. The one that unsettles people because it exposes their inner fragility without a single word being spoken. Inspired by Machiavellian clarity, we will uncover why true confidence is forged in silence, restraint, and self-mastery rather than noise and validation. If this resonates, comment the phrase silent authority below. Stay until the end, like the video, and subscribe, because the truth waiting for you there is not comforting, but it is liberating. Long before confidence became a performance, Niccolo Machiavelli understood it as an inner architecture of power, rooted in self-command rather than image. In the brutal political arenas of Renaissance Italy, survival depended not on being loved, but on being unshakable. Machiavelli observed that those who frightened others the most were not the loud or aggressive ones, but those whose inner state could not be read or influenced. Philosophically, this form of confidence is tied to mastery over fear, desire, and reaction. A theme echoed later in Stoic thought, yet often stripped of its darker realism. Over time, modern culture diluted this idea, confusing confidence with visibility and validation. In an age addicted to approval, the silent, grounded individual becomes unsettling because they expose a forgotten truth. Most people are ruled by what they seek to be seen as, not by who they truly are. To become so confident that it unsettles others, you must first accept a disturbing truth. Most people avoid their entire lives. Confidence is not a personality trait. It is a psychological position. It is the result of where you stand internally in relation to fear, approval, loss, and control. Most humans are not confident or insecure by nature. They are simply reactive. They move according to invisible strings pulled by other people's opinions, expectations, and emotional climates. The moment you understand this, you realize why true confidence feels threatening. It breaks the unspoken social contract that says you must constantly signal your intentions, your emotions, and your need for acceptance. When you stop doing that, people feel exposed because your stillness forces them to confront their own noise. At the core of terrifying confidence lies non-neediness. Not the superficial kind people imitate by pretending not to care, but the deep psychological state where your sense of self is no longer dependent on outcomes. You no longer need agreement to feel right, validation to feel worthy, or attention to feel alive. This does not make you passive. It makes you grounded. When someone speaks and you do not rush to defend, justify, or impress, something strange happens in their mind. They begin to question their own position. Silence, when chosen rather than imposed, creates asymmetry. The one who reacts reveals dependence. The one who remains centered reveals power. Most people misunderstand confidence because they confuse it with dominance displays. Raised voices, exaggerated certainty, constant opinion sharing, forced charisma. These behaviors are not confidence. They are compensation. They are attempts to control perception because the inner state is unstable. A truly confident individual does not need to convince anyone of anything. Their presence alone sets a frame. Others either adapt to it or feel uncomfortable inside it. This discomfort is often mislabeled as intimidation, when in reality it is confrontation with one's own inner chaos. There is a reason calm individuals are often described as intimidating without doing anything overt. Calm is rare in a world driven by urgency. Calm signals that you are not controlled by the same pressures as others. When everyone else is emotionally leveraged by time, attention, desire, or fear of rejection, Your steadiness becomes a mirror. People see in you what they lack in themselves: inner sovereignty. And sovereignty always disturbs those who live under internal tyranny. Another key mechanism behind terrifying confidence is predictability without transparency. Most people overshare their intentions, their emotions, their insecurities, believing this creates connection. In reality, it creates leverage for others. When your internal world is fully accessible, you become manageable. When it is not, you become difficult to manipulate. This does not mean becoming cold or deceptive. It means choosing when and how much of yourself you reveal. Psychological boundaries are not walls, they are gates. You decide who enters, when, and why. The person who cannot be easily read becomes a variable, and humans instinctively fear variables they cannot control. You have been taught that confidence comes from knowing you will succeed. This is false. Confidence comes from knowing you will survive even if you fail. Once failure no longer threatens your identity, fear loses its grip. You stop chasing certainty and start operating from resilience. This is why people who have faced loss, humiliation, or collapse and rebuilt themselves often radiate a quiet authority. They have already died symbolically. There is nothing left to threaten. When someone senses that you are not afraid of falling, their attempts to destabilize you lose power. Terrifying confidence also emerges when your actions align fully with your values. Inner conflict is visible even when unspoken. When you say one thing but desire another, your body language leaks hesitation. When your words are not rooted in conviction, your tone betrays doubt. But when you are internally aligned, when you know why you act and what you will not compromise, your presence becomes coherent. Coherence is rare, and rarity creates gravity. People are drawn to it and disturbed by it at the same time, because it highlights their own fragmentation. Consider how often people seek permission without realizing it. They soften statements, add disclaimers, laugh nervously, over-explain. These behaviors are subtle requests for safety. When you remove them, when you speak simply and stand by your words without aggression or apology, you change the dynamic instantly. Others may interpret this as arrogance, but what they are really feeling is the absence of submission cues. You are not placing yourself above them. You are refusing to place yourself below them. Equality feels threatening to those who rely on hierarchy to feel secure. Another element few talk about is emotional containment. Most people leak emotions unconsciously. Their frustrations spill into their tone, their anxiety into their gestures, their need into their eyes. Learning to contain emotion does not mean suppressing it. It means processing it internally before expressing it deliberately. When you are no longer ruled by emotional impulses, you gain timing. And timing is power. The one who chooses when to speak, when to act, and when to remain silent controls the rhythm of interaction. Others follow that rhythm whether they want to or not. You may have noticed that people who terrify others with confidence rarely explain themselves. Explanation is often a bid for understanding. Understanding is often a bid for acceptance. When you accept yourself fully, explanation becomes optional. This does not mean you become obscure or hostile. It means you stop narrating your existence for others. You let your actions speak over time. Consistency replaces persuasion. And consistency is far more unsettling than words, because it cannot be argued with easily. There is also a paradox at play. The more you detach from controlling how you are perceived, the more control you gain over the interaction. When you stop managing impressions, people start projecting onto you. They fill the silence with their assumptions, fears, and expectations. This projection reveals more about them than about you. A confident individual observes this without reacting. Observation without reaction is one of the most powerful psychological positions you can occupy. It places you outside the emotional turbulence of the moment. Terrifying confidence is not about intimidating others intentionally. It is about becoming internally unmoved. When praise does not inflate you and criticism does not collapse you, people lose the ability to steer you emotionally. This creates unease, especially in those accustomed to influencing others through approval or disapproval. Your neutrality feels like resistance. Your calm feels like defiance. Yet you are doing nothing except standing firmly in yourself. At this stage, a question begins to form in the listener's mind, even if they cannot articulate it. What does this person know that I do not? This question is the seed of both admiration and fear. It is why people may test you, provoke you, or attempt to expose you. They are seeking reassurance that you are as fragile as they are. When they fail, when you remain composed, the intimidation grows, not because you are threatening, but because you are uncontrollable. But this is only the surface layer. What most people never see is the internal discipline required to sustain this level of confidence. It demands ruthless honesty with yourself. It demands the willingness to sit with discomfort without escaping into distraction or validation. It demands that you confront your own fears of rejection, insignificance, and solitude. Many want the aura without the work. That is why they imitate behaviors without embodying the state. An imitation without inner transformation always collapses under pressure. As we move forward, the tension deepens. Because once confidence is no longer about image, it begins to collide with desire. The desire to be liked, the desire to be chosen, the desire to belong. These desires are not weaknesses in themselves, but they become chains when they dictate your behavior. The next layer of this exploration will confront that conflict directly, and what it truly costs to become unshakable in a world built on emotional dependence. If Part 1 revealed the architecture of terrifying confidence, this second descent exposes its price. Because what most people secretly want is not confidence itself, but the rewards they believe confidence brings. Admiration, influence, safety, desire. Machiavellian confidence is disturbing precisely because it severs that equation. It teaches you to become solid without guarantees, respected without pleading, powerful without display. And this is where most people turn back, because this level of confidence demands the death of comforting illusions. One of the deepest illusions of modern life is the belief that confidence grows through external accumulation, achievements, status, visibility, approval. But the more your identity is built on what can be gained, the more fragile it becomes. Anything that can be added can be taken away. Terrifying confidence emerges only when your sense of self is no longer expandable or reducible by circumstance. You are not more when praised or less when ignored. This psychological neutrality is profoundly unsettling to others because it breaks the emotional economy they unconsciously rely on. They cannot reward you into compliance or punish you into submission. Here lies a paradox few dare to face. Confidence intensifies when you accept being misunderstood. Most people spend their lives trying to correct how they are perceived, explaining intentions, clarifying tone, defending character. This is exhausting because perception is not under your control. When you finally relinquish the need to be accurately seen, something shifts. You stop negotiating your identity. You allow others to hold their interpretations without rushing to fix them. This does not make you careless. It makes you free. And freedom, when embodied calmly, feels threatening to those still trapped in performance. Another hidden layer is the relationship between confidence and solitude. Terrifying confidence grows in silence, not applause. It is cultivated in moments where no one is watching, validating, or reacting. Most people fear these moments because silence amplifies inner doubt. They fill it with noise, distraction, or connection. But when you remain present in silence, when you learn to sit with your thoughts without immediately escaping them, you develop self-trust. Self-trust is the foundation beneath all visible confidence. When you trust yourself, you no longer need constant reassurance from others. And this absence of need changes how you move through every interaction. Modern culture encourages emotional transparency as a moral virtue, but Machiavellian realism warns of its misuse. Emotional expression without discernment becomes vulnerability without protection. When every feeling is broadcast, it loses depth and leverage. Terrifying confidence is emotionally intelligent, not emotionally exposed. You feel deeply, but you choose carefully what becomes visible. This selectivity is not manipulation, it is sovereignty. It says, "My inner world is not a public resource," and people instinctively respect what is protected. There is also an uncomfortable truth about ego that must be confronted. Many believe confidence means having a strong ego, but the opposite is closer to reality. Ego is reactive. It flares up when threatened, craves recognition, resists criticism. Terrifying confidence arises when ego loosens its grip. When insult does not demand retaliation and praise does not demand attachment, others lose their ability to provoke predictable reactions. Unpredictability, rooted in calm, is far more intimidating than aggression rooted in insecurity. This is why attempts to act confident fail. Behavior without inner detachment becomes brittle. The confident posture cracks under pressure. The calm voice tightens under challenge. The silence becomes awkward rather than powerful. Embodied confidence is not a technique. It is a byproduct of inner resolution. You are no longer divided against yourself. Desire, fear, and action move in the same direction. This internal unity radiates outward, whether you intend it or not. Another paradox emerges here. The more you release the desire to dominate, the more dominant your presence becomes. Domination pursued directly reeks of insecurity. Domination that emerges naturally from inner stability feels inevitable. People defer not because you demand it, but because resisting you feels pointless. Your calm does not push, it absorbs. It does not confront, it outlasts. Time becomes your ally, while others exhaust themselves trying to control moments. You control duration. There is also a darker dimension few discuss openly. Terrifying confidence can trigger hostility. When you stop participating in emotional games, some people will attempt to pull you back in. They may provoke, belittle, test, or subtly undermine you. This is not because you are doing something wrong, but because your presence destabilizes their internal balance. You become a reminder of what they are not willing to confront in themselves. Understanding this prevents you from personalizing resistance. You see it for what it is, a reaction to contrast, not a judgment of your worth. At this level, confidence becomes ethical as much as psychological. You must decide how you will use the power of being unmoved. Will you exploit emotional leverage, or will you simply refuse to be controlled by it? Machiavellian insight is not an invitation to cruelty. It is a warning about reality. Power exists whether acknowledged or not. Those who deny it are often ruled by it unconsciously. Those who see it can choose restraint. Another illusion shatters here. The belief that confidence must feel good all the time. True confidence often feels quiet, even heavy. It lacks the emotional highs of validation and the drama of conflict. It replaces stimulation with clarity. Many abandon it because they mistake boredom for emptiness. But boredom is often the nervous system detoxing from chaos. Once the craving for emotional intensity fades, a deeper steadiness takes its place. This steadiness does not excite, it anchors. And anchored people do not drift with every emotional tide. You may notice that as confidence deepens, your circle narrows. This is not a failure, it is a consequence. When you no longer mirror insecurity, some connections dissolve naturally. Others strengthen, built on mutual respect rather than mutual need. This selective gravity is another reason confidence feels frightening. It exposes which relationships were based on dependence rather than alignment. The final illusion to confront in this part is the belief that confidence is about becoming someone else. In truth, it is about subtraction, removing false urgency, removing the need to be liked, removing the reflex to explain, removing the fear of standing alone. What remains is not louder, flashier, or more impressive. It is simpler. And simplicity, when rare, feels dangerous to those addicted to complexity and noise. As this layer settles, another question emerges, heavier than before. If you no longer chase approval, validation, or certainty, how do you act in the world? What replaces the old motivations? This is where theory must turn into practice, because without integration, insight becomes another form of intellectual escape. The next section will bring this confidence out of abstraction and into lived experience, where it is tested not by ideas, but by habits, choices, and daily resistance. To embody a confidence that truly unsettles others, you must stop treating confidence as a feeling and start treating it as a discipline practiced daily, especially when no one is watching. The first practice is deliberate non-reaction. This means choosing consciously not to respond immediately to emotional stimuli. When someone challenges you, praises you, ignores you, or provokes you, you pause internally before acting. That pause is where power is built. At first, it will feel uncomfortable, even unnatural, because your nervous system is accustomed to quick validation or defense. But each time you delay reaction, you teach your mind that you are not in danger. Over time, this rewires your sense of safety away from external feedback and back into yourself. Another essential practice is reducing unnecessary self-explanation. Notice how often you justify your choices, clarify your intentions, or soften your words to avoid discomfort. Begin removing one explanation at a time. Speak simply. Say what you mean. Stop adding emotional padding. You will notice that silence after a statement feels heavy at first, but that weight is exactly what creates authority. People lean into what is not over-explained. A third discipline is voluntary discomfort. Terrifying confidence grows when you willingly face situations that challenge your need for control or reassurance. Spend time alone without distractions. Sit in silence without music, without your phone, without stimulation. Let the unease rise and fall on its own. This trains you to remain present with yourself rather than escaping into noise. Confidence is built in this solitude because you learn, experientially, that you can be with yourself without collapsing. Another form of voluntary discomfort is speaking less in group settings. Observe more. Let others fill the space. This does not make you invisible. It makes your words rarer, and rarity increases weight. When you do speak, do not rush. Take your time. Timing is more powerful than volume. You must also practice emotional containment. When something triggers you, instead of expressing it immediately, process it internally. Ask yourself what is actually threatened. Is it your ego, your image, or your safety? Most reactions are ego-based, not survival-based. When you identify this, the emotion loses intensity. You can then choose whether expression serves a purpose or merely relieves tension. Expressing everything may feel honest, but it often weakens your position. Containment does not mean repression. It means digestion. What is digested no longer controls you. Another powerful ritual is identity subtraction. Each week, identify one behavior you use to gain approval or avoid rejection, and consciously reduce it. This could be excessive politeness, constant availability, oversharing, or trying to be entertaining. Removing these habits will initially make you feel exposed. That exposure is the shedding of dependency. In its place grows a quieter, firmer sense of self. Confidence does not come from adding traits. It comes from removing crutches. You must also redefine success internally. Instead of measuring success by outcomes, measure it by self-alignment. Did you act according to your values, even if it cost you comfort? Did you remain calm under pressure? Did you resist the urge to perform? This internal scorecard builds self-respect, which is far more stable than external validation. People sense self-respect immediately. It cannot be faked because it changes how you carry yourself, how you listen, and how you respond. Expect resistance, both internal and external. Internally, your mind will try to pull you back into old patterns, convincing you that you are becoming cold, distant, or arrogant. This is fear disguised as morality. Externally, some people will test you. They may escalate behavior to provoke reaction. Your task is not to win, explain, or correct, but to remain centered. When you do not take the bait, the dynamic shifts. Either respect grows or distance forms. Both outcomes serve clarity. Another crucial practice is consistency. Terrifying confidence is not built through occasional strength, but through repeated calm. Do not alternate between firmness and collapse. Be predictable in your self-command, not in your reactions. Over time, people adjust to your frame. They learn what does and does not move you. This predictability creates psychological gravity. Others orient themselves around you without conscious decision. Finally, accept the cost. This path will reduce certain forms of attention. It will remove shallow validation. It may create loneliness before it creates respect. Many abandon this path because they confuse quiet with emptiness. But if you stay, something deeper forms. Inner stability that does not fluctuate with circumstances. From that place, confidence stops being something you try to project and becomes something others feel in your presence. This is how confidence becomes unsettling. Not because you intimidate, dominate, or perform, but because you no longer seek permission to exist as you are. You are calm where others are frantic, silent where others are loud, steady where others chase. And that contrast is impossible to ignore. Terrifying confidence is not an act you perform, nor a mask you wear to impress or protect yourself. It is the quiet consequence of inner alignment, emotional sovereignty, and the refusal to live on borrowed validation. You have seen that true confidence does not come from certainty, dominance, or visibility, but from the deep, knowing that you can stand alone without collapsing. When you no longer rush to explain yourself, when silence no longer frightens you, when praise and criticism lose their power to move you, something irreversible happens. You stop being manageable, and what cannot be managed is often mistaken for danger. This kind of confidence reshapes how you walk through the world. It changes the way others speak to you, test you, or reveal themselves around you. Some will respect you without understanding why. Others will resist you without knowing what they are reacting to. Neither response should concern you, because once your center is internal, the outside world becomes information, not authority. You no longer ask reality who you are. You decide, and then you act accordingly. The final truth few dare to face is this: the confidence that terrifies others is the same confidence that frees you. It is not loud, It does not seek to conquer, it simply refuses to kneel emotionally. And in a world built on reaction, that refusal is revolutionary. So ask yourself, not whether you want to be confident, but whether you are willing to let go of the things that keep you dependent. Because the moment you do, you will notice something unsettling and profound. People will feel your presence before you ever say a word.